Simón, para el oro 20 de Juárez, es para ustedes. Una vez, un vato loco.
Hello, and welcome to The Bomb Squad and our summer of guests. I'm writer-director Andrew Hada, and I'm here with my co-host Joshua Epp. And that was his introduction.
Yeah.
And also, today we're joined by, oh my God, I'm going to mess it up. Sharai Bohannon.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Me and Sharai know each other from Twitter and I was on her podcast.
Nightmare on Fear Street.
Yeah. Nightmare on Fear Street. And so, yeah, we kind of got to know each other from there. And so I wanted to bring her on just to get that amazing laugh on my podcast. And so, so I wanted to ask, what movie did you pick?
I picked The Frighteners. As a child, I was obsessed with Micheal J Fox. I have no idea why and what for. I mean, he was everywhere, so that's probably part of it. Is he just inceptioned us that lived on the television? But I remember when this came out because it came out in 96. And so I was starting to figure out what parts of his career I was watching in real time versus what was repeats.
Right.
And I was like, oh my God, this is a new movie from this person I've been staring at for all of my life. And I was like, I don't know, 8, maybe. I'm bad at math. And so it was big. We rented it and I wore out the tape because back then you could keep a tape for like a week in this place where you go to rent movies.
Yeah.
Dating myself. But like I wore it out. And I remember being like, haha, please be kind and rewind so we can rewatch it because I thought I was witty. And so, yeah. And so I was like, I should revisit this now that I have a podcast that gives me an excuse to find it.
Yeah, it is perfect because it's one of those movies I wouldn't have thought to pick. But it perfectly fits our theme of our podcast, so it's perfect.
Yeah, another sleeper for different reasons, but another sleeper.
Yeah, let me get into some of the technical. Like she said, it was made in 1996. It was directed by Peter Jackson. It stars Micheal J Fox. Like, it's funny because usually I have to have IMDb open. But with this one, I really do not.
Right? It's a banger cast for the 90s especially.
So good,
It has a lot of, like, if you don't know some of these people, you've seen them before.
When I saw Jake Busey, I literally, like, clapped. I was like, yes!
Even, like, John Astin. You know what? I've watched this movie so many times, and I just barely realized it was John Astin as the judge. And I was like, oh, yeah, of course he is. I guess because I always looked. Since it was like one of those things where when you watch it as a kid, you don't automatically connect actors to characters. So I just saw him as a ghost. And so this is the first time that I've realized that, hey, that's an actor in there.
I didn't realize this was my first time seeing and recognizing Chi McBride as an actor because he's been around forever.
Yeah.
But I mostly remember him from things when I was more of an adult or older and tween. And so when I was rewatching this, I was like, he was here the whole time.
Yeah. And Chi McBride will do that to you with a bunch of shows where it's like, oh my God, why are you in this? This is so long ago. And
he is pushing daisies.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And Josh, tell us what The Frighteners is about.
A ghostly con man gets a little more than he bargained for. That's it.
That works for me. And we'll get more into the plot, but okay. So we've kind of talked about why you picked it. When I saw this as a kid, because it was one of those things where I think everyone who was around our age grew up like kind of loving Micheal J Fox, mostly because of Back to the Future or Spin City or something, And I think, like, I remember finding out that he was a star of this movie, and, like, I hadn't seen him in a movie in so long that I was like, oh my God, this is going to be amazing. And so, like, there was a weird excitement, I think, among, like, genre fans because Micheal J Fox was, like, headlining this kind of horror film.
Yeah. Which, I mean, when you like break it apart, it does feel like it could be a Michael J. Fox movie because, like, again, Back to the Future was like
Right.
very Back to the Future, and this also has a lot of special effects and a lot of like weird comedy and humor, and so like the ingredients are there. It just happens to also be something we wouldn't see coming from him, and so it was also weird for that reason.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty surprised because I hadn't watched it in a long time, and I'm pretty surprised at how unlikable his character is.
How do you know? You know me? Am I a nice guy, Lucy? Because, that cozy little scene in the restaurant was, bullshit. Because I was doing my job. I don't give a damn about you. I don't give a damn about anybody.
What the hell are you saying?
Go home.
And it's like perfect casting that it's Michael J. Fox because his character could have easily been like an unlikable person where you just don't like him. And he does like unlikable things, but since he's played by Michael J. Fox, he always keeps you tethered to at least caring enough whether he lives or dies, and eventually, he kind of salvages himself. And like, yeah, it's a very different role for him, which is interesting.
He has this thing that nobody ever gives him credit for. He's still with us. It's weird because it's like 96, but he's still very much alive and doing things. Retired from acting, but he has this thing that people never give him credit for, but they always give it to Tom Hanks, and that he's your likable everyman. And so no matter where you put him, you end up rooting for this person, even if you shouldn't.
Yeah,
it's true.
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with the fact that he's very short in all his roles.
Yeah, I'm sure half of my fascination with him is I needed to hug him, and I found out he was Canadian. I was like, "What does that mean?" So like, I was a very weird child.
Yeah, if you just describe this character to someone, like, you wouldn't think, like, you wouldn't, you'd be like, oh yeah, he's an architect who talks to ghosts and runs a ghost scam business and lives in his half-built house begrudgingly. You're like, oh, that's like a Michael Shannon weirdo in like a horror film, right? You're like, no, he's like a likable protagonist.
Yeah. Like, I can't think of many actors who could have made this a lovable role and a fun ride, because everybody else would have been like, I'm dark and I'm haunted by my dead wife. And he's like, I got dead friends and I got problems, but let's do this.
Yeah, and I was reading, like, because I was looking at some of the trivia, and I was reading the other choices. Like, Michael J. Fox was always first choice, but after that, it was Tom Cruise and like Johnny Depp and John Cusack. And I feel like each one of them would have been way too dark, where it's kind of like, oh, I don't really like you. You're kind of...
The only one on that list who I am not actively mad at is John Cusack, and I might just not be checking on him enough. But it still wouldn't have been right, because again, like, Michael just has his energy. Like, he still has it, like, in interviews and in books. Like, he's still very much this person who you're like, yes, I want to buy whatever you're selling. Yes, let's do this.
Right. Yeah, and his character, we should say, Frank Bannister, he's like, he can see ghosts after a car accident that like took the life of his wife. And he's, instead of like doing that to help anyone, he uses it to scam people, where like he'll send his ghost friends to go haunt their house, and then he'll get rid of the ghosts. Yeah, really, he really
the
does.
motions.
Yeah, and because this was one of Peter Jackson's like first, it was like his first horror film in America. Because he had done Heavenly Creatures, which is kind of there, but like this is like more of his wheelhouse. And I think like, you can see a lot of his little touches. Like at the very beginning, so he goes and Frank Bannister goes and he like does the scam, and then he finds out that the husband has like a number on him. He's like trying to figure out what it is, and then the husband dies, and he takes the husband to the funeral. And like, I just really love like the little touches that Peter Jackson always throws in, where it's like, yeah, look at like you can tell that he's really sat down and thought about like every aspect of this world that he's created.
Yeah, there's so much like attention to like little things that I think it's like, it's such a weird delight. Like, you see the husband's kind of a weirdo, like first when he runs over, his fence and everything. And then later you see as like an Elvis statue in his room, and you realize he kind of has Elvis hair. Like he's an Elvis fan with the Elvis hair, and it's just like who would have thought to put, oh, by the way, this guy loves Elvis into the movie, you know?
He was such a I could not figure out his character as a child, and even rewatching it today, I was like, because he's very much self-involved. He's definitely like done something with his wife's money. They're not in love.
Right.
They seem obligated to be in the house because probably financial reasons. And she's this serious woman with a career, and we don't know what he does other than works out and like hugs his gnomes. And so I just
movie's great is when the kitchenware, the plates and everything are literally levitating around, and he turns to his wife and goes, "There's got to be a rational explanation for this." It's just, I was like, all right, that's the tone in this one image, and it's perfect.
I just love that she was like, you need to call this ghost guy who you met today, and he's like, no, I'm stubborn. We'll just stay haunted. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like they took the stereotype of like the 1950s hysterical housewife to like the tough like man, and like flipped the genders. So he's just this hysterical house husband who like can't get it together, you know?
Yeah. He was such a mess.
He's so
yeah,
good.
and like it's this weird thing where I almost don't know if he knows, because like at certain points he wants to protect Lucy, but he also is constantly lying to her. And so like it's just like I think that like he sees everything superficially. Like even like when he's dead and they go to dinner and he's trying to talk to Lucy through Frank, he tells her at the beginning, he's like, once I get back on my feet, I'm gonna build you a house. And it's like, you're dead, sir. You literally are like you're a ghost. You can't even sit down.
They put out a new, like the local newspaper puts out an article about how he's a con man, and they don't really say how he's a con man because clearly the hauntings are real, you know, but people still turn on him despite the fact that the hauntings continue. such a strange idea.
It's like that, like the lady, oh, I just forgot her name, the redhead who he tries to save later.
Oh, the newspaper lady. I know she's played by Elizabeth Hawthorne. I don't know what her name is in the
Magda.
movie.
It's Magda.
I'm just trying to make a living.
Living? Not a word you'd know a lot about, is it, Mr. Bannister?
And so, like, I can see, like, people would rather try to convince themselves that Frank did it, which, oddly enough, he kind of did, but not in the way they think. And so, like, they're just trying to push him out for one reason or another. Because he is kind of seen as, like, a pariah around town, even before they know that he's a con artist.
Yeah. No, I always love that about weird small towns that these movies take place in. Because you're like, how did this person get to be the outcast specifically? Because, yeah, we have this one incident, which is suspect, but it's just like, let's never trust him. Let's always like harass him. And I'm just like, how do we get to that point though?
Yeah.
I
Get us from A to B.
He does live in a half-built house on the edge of town, so I kind of see how he'd be seen as the town weirdo in spite of everything else. So.
Yeah, I think that's why I was drawn to it other than Micheal J Fox, because clearly after I saw Michael, something kept me watching it forever as a child. And I think that's part of it, is because it was hitting the right notes of spooky and whimsical that Tim Burton seemed to have a lock on when I was a child.
Yeah, what I liked about like kind of the gore is that it does, because you know, I was like, you're talking about his contemporaries with like Casper, so it'll have the like, oh, the ghost gets run over by a car and he kind of gets flattened, but then it'll also have like, oh, this person got scythed down the middle and you see their guts coming out as they die. You know, it's like, okay, it does both, like both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, and I feel like because all the ghosts look translucent and they have a bluish hue to them, and I feel like that helps with kind of keeping the ghosts more on your side, if that makes, like, you're never really scared of those ghosts because they kind of seem a little bit friendlier with the blue light. And so I kind of feel like that was a good choice to keep them like that, especially because they have Chi McBride plays like he died in the 70s, so he still has like the afro and he has like the disco suit. And the other guy, he died in like the 50s, so he looks like a 50s kind of, like he has the Letterman's jacket and stuff. I feel like they picked the two like most wholesome outfits for these characters.
And then there's the cowboy, the judge,
Oh, the
right?
judge.
Yes,
Yeah.
not Sean. Oh my God, it's John Aston, who was Gomez, which also I think I didn't appreciate enough as a kid.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. John Aston, he's like a gem every time he shows up. And also, this is a funny bit of trivia, but apparently during filming, Michael J. Fox kept calling him Doc from Back to the Future, and I was like, that's what I assumed would happen. Michael J. Fox is Marty McFly.
He really is.
he would just skateboard on the set every day, and no one questioned it.
Yeah, I think part of his retirement is that he's going to be doing some time travel and doesn't have time for the present anymore.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, John Aston, and then he has the dog who like eats his jaw sometimes. It's just because again, there was you could have gone scary with his friends and made him kind of like dark and sinister, but the fact that they kind of keep him a little bit like Casper in the Casper universe ghosts, it really helps to like not make you hate these characters, which is, I mean, you need it.
And it also helps set up the villain who's in the robe with like the giant Reaper mood, because you're like, clearly that's a villain. That's not a friendly ghost.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the fact that because the villain looks like the Grim Reaper, he has a big cloak, he has the sickle, he can't see his face really. You see it once when they run through the car, and he's revealed later, but at the beginning, that's what you see. And I'm surprised that we haven't seen that many Grim Reaper villains in cinema, and also B, like how effective it is, and not only making him separate from the regular ghost, but also making him pretty scary when you're watching him like move around. Like he has a menace about him.
I feel like he was overshadowed because this was the same year as Scream. And so they were like, well, clearly I want to be Ghostface.
Right.
And so we forgot what we have rediscovered here, and we need to bring it back. We need justice for the Reaper.
Yeah, we need more Reaper paraphernalia.
More Reaper madness.
And I feel like Scream was an easy costume because everyone already had that mask when Scream came out. Like that's what's so good about it, is that it was like the most common mask ever.
Yeah, it was like built-in marketing, basically. It was kind of perfect, and to their credit.
But yeah, I really like the Reaper and how he looks, and like the fact that he when he takes out the sickle, he like bangs it on the ground to let the blade come out. Again, it's all these touches that just really like, it's like, oh my God, Peter Jackson, give him Lord of the Rings. He's gonna do a great job.
Yeah, that is one of those where people are like, oh, look into Peter Jackson's earlier works. It's like, you are going to be surprised if you didn't already know.
Well, and you know what's funny is when they announced that he was going to make these movies, I remember being like, yeah, he made the Frighteners. He knows how to deal with special effects. Because when you're like 10 years old, you don't know that there's like different levels of special effects. So you're like, yeah, he did the ghost. He can do anything.
Yeah. And how could he have resisted in the scene with all the ghost soldiers in Lord of the Rings? How did he resist slipping in the Frightener ghosts, just in the crowd? I don't know.
I want to redo.
What a film. What a picture.
It's good. And I think like this movie is kind of always on some kind of streaming. It goes back and forth. So I think, yeah,
it's not right now unless you have Stars. If you don't have Stars, you have to rent it or own it,
but it was on Hulu like last month.
I know, it was on HBO like 2 months ago, so I was very surprised. I even tried Tubi. That's how desperate I was, but it was not on Tubi.
The cycles for horror movies from the 90s is wild, because they'll be somewhere popular for a month and then somewhere off the beaten path for a month and then back on something else popular. And I'm like, is this like one of those random like 60-second dating situations? Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, like right now, I wanted to watch all the Jason movies, and I had to get Stars. That's why I have Stars. And yeah, but like last month, they were all on Hulu, so they just kind of switched back and forth.
Yeah, it makes it hard to plan, because you're like, yeah, we're going to do this. And then by the time you get there, it's like, oh, I'm not going to pay $10 for it. Let's do something else.
Yeah, well, like, because when we were trying to watch every Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, it's like, oh, it's weird that 1, 2, and 3 aren't on HBO, but 4 is? Like, I don't know.
I think the first 3 are on Shudder right now.
They're on Tubi, or they were on Tubi at least.
And I know the first 2 are on Shudder too.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is that we want to jump back into the remake, but right now it's on HBO Max. But I feel like by the time we get to it, it's not gonna be. So.
Yeah.
I've definitely been like, hey, let's grab this while it's here and we'll figure out when we can actually put it up later. Because I will not be paying for things that are free for like 9 months out of the year. And then the month I'm ready, it's like, no. Because when we did we did the Alien franchise for my birthday and they were on HBO Max forever until people voted for that franchise. And then they were like, scatter. And so we were piecing them together and reading parts. And I was like, I hate this.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so weird, especially like when they own the franchise, like just keep it there. What are you doing?
Yeah.
I don't
I'm
have to
sure
search
there's
for Batman
some weird licensing thing. Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
No.
But yeah, and right now it's perfect to watch. It's also, I feel like it's a good gateway horror film because like there is deaths and stuff, but I feel like like a 11, 12-year-old, that's when I watched it, and I feel like it's good enough. It's not gonna scar you, but it's kind of gonna get you into horror, I feel.
It's definitely on that slate of movies I feel would be age appropriate. Granted, I was a weird kid, so I watched everything. But I feel like this and like your Beetlejuice and like your Clue, those are like nice little midway spooky movies to get a gateway started for your child.
Yeah, and I feel the same way where it's like, yeah, I personally think it's a gateway, but I was also watching like Predator when I was like 5 years old, so what do I know?
Yeah.
Like,
I was watching weird things.
My imaginary friends were like Freddy Krueger and Michael Myers, so like I'm not gonna tell somebody what to let their kids watch, but I feel it's a safe space.
Yeah, I think it's worth a look. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially if you have like those kids who want to get into horror but aren't sure about it. It's like a good like check this out, see if you like it. And now it's time for you to go complete the journey and check it out.
Yes.
I've opened the door. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But cool. Yeah, this was a lot of fun to talk about Frighteners. I feel like it helped that I've seen this movie like a bunch of times.
Same.
So I knew like I watched it last night, but I was like, I don't really need to watch it. I kind of know what I'm going to say anyway.
I watched it yesterday and it's like I never turned it off because again, as a
Yeah.
child, I watched it so many times, like an embarrassing number of times. I don't know if I thought I was studying it, if I just didn't know what else to do with my life.
Yeah.
So I was like, I never left this town. We're back again. Okay.
Yeah. And I think like as a kid, you just find it. I remember when I was like in 10 years old for one of my birthdays, I watched Star Wars like during my birthday party while everyone was outside playing. And it's like, oh no, it wasn't even like the first time I saw Star Wars. I had seen it a bunch before. I just needed to finish it.
Like, yeah, it's on. Yeah.
You have to. Like I used to do that with the Twilight Zone because whenever we would get cable, I would find my way to sci-fi immediately and it was always on because again, the 90s.
Yeah.
And so you
Right.
just lose a couple days staring at these episodes you've seen 90 times.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Especially like I remember when I was a kid, you would only get cable whenever there was a free trial, so you had
Yep.
to take advantage of it. But cool. Well, yeah, this was a lot of fun. Yeah, go watch the Frighteners. It's on Hulu, or it's on Stars. I'm about to say Hulu because I don't know what I'm talking about. And go check it out. Tell us what you think. Sherry, tell us where people can find you.
You can find my podcast, Nightmare on Fierce Street, at Nightmare Fierce on Twitter and Instagram, and at A Nightmare on Fierce Street, the full name, on Facebook.
Yes.
If you want to watch me and my shenanigans, yelling at people to watch Tales from the Hood and his house, you can follow my personal Instagram and Twitter, and that's MISSSHARAI.
Cool. And I'll link them just so people can see them, but just so they can hear it too.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. This
Yeah,
was awesome.
This summer, actually, you call it the summer of guests, but these aren't coming out till like late August. So you should
Yeah.
edit
But
it
it's
to
still
say
summer.
autumn of guests.
I do summer of. It's because I'm the star of this show, not the audience.
Oh.
It's based on my experience. But yeah. Thank you guys for joining us in this autumn time. And we'll see you next time on The Bomb Squad.